Hey everybody, Brandon back again at the Kabuki Strength Studio. We're talking close grip bench press width specifically. So this is one of those staple exercises that a lot of people use, and for good reason. They really train your triceps and they can add a lot of useful variety within a similar pattern as your primary either competition bench press or touch and go bench press. But there are a few considerations to be made outside of just going closer with your hands, and that's exactly what we're going to cover in this video today. So Brandon, let's get you onto the bench and show them the starting of a close grip bench. If you are really unsure of where you should start, I highly recommend going with a grip that keeps your elbows and wrists stacked over one another. I think the close grip bench press becomes slightly more effective for the tricep development if you have a more of an acute elbow angle, because the narrower this angle is between your upper arm bone and your elbow, the narrower that angle is, the more your elbow extensors, your triceps, will have to do to overcome that position. So the closer you go, the more your triceps are going to work. However, you may end up overdoing it if you lack the mobility to do so, and specifically mobility in the upper back. Go ahead and grip it narrower here, Brandon. Just a bit more. Yeah, somewhere right in there. Whether you want to call this a narrow grip or a close grip, this is just kind of our starting point, and we're going to manipulate Brandon's grip position from here. Go ahead and bring it down to your chest and just pause it there, Brandon. So as we can see from that elbow angle, this is pretty good. This is a pretty decent starting point for Brandon. This is, I would probably call this more of a narrow grip bench press, but at some point it doesn't really matter. We're just mostly talking about the starting position of the grip. Go ahead and rack it here, Brandon. Let's go a bit closer. Go ahead. Now Brandon's going to have excellent mobility in his upper back. He has great thoracic mobility. He has great scapular function, and he can get away, despite being a bigger guy, he can get away going very narrow and maintaining his shoulder position. When I'm talking about maintaining shoulder position, Brandon, without injuring yourself, can you get out of position while you're down here? Like kind of dump those shoulders forward or flare your elbows excessively. Now you'll notice a lot of people, if you have a really tight or locked up thoracic spine, if you can't really extend that T-spine, or if you can't fully retract your scapulas in shoulder extension, you will end up in a position like Brandon is here, where you're kind of shrugging up and those hands drift in front of your elbows. Go ahead and try and press out of that, Brandon. In order to, yeah, it's kind of hard there. Go ahead and rack it for just a second, but stay right there. In order for Brandon to overcome that position, he will either have to heave it off of his chest, or he's going to end up really flaring his elbows and turning it into a very vertical type press, both of which tend to be somewhat unfavorable for shoulder health as well as bicep pain and things of that nature. So you should probably go as narrow as you can while maintaining your shoulder and scapular function. Sit up for me here, Brandon, and just face that way while you sit on the bench. Go ahead and put your hands in a kind of a close grip position. Go ahead and bring the bar down like properly and really try to retract your shoulder as well. Now, what we don't want to see in somebody, and this is like, if we had a see-through bench, this would be awesome, but those don't exist, so we have to do it kind of like this. If an individual had a really, really locked up thoracic spine, go ahead and hang your head forward just a little, Brandon. Kind of like that. That's kind of overdoing it, but you can see how immediate that changed the position and orientation of the shoulders and elbows. What that's going to do is require the upper traps and many other muscles to do more work than they otherwise should. The pecs are also going to be put into a very big, deep stretch and a point where they're probably not that great at being loaded. And we're also going to find that that elbow position from the wrist to elbow, or excuse me, from the forearm to the upper arm bone begins to open up a bit. And what we talked about was the wider this gap is between the upper arm bone and the forearm, the less the triceps are really going to have to work. So even if you go super narrow, but you're required to do one of these at the bottom of the press, you're actually going to use less of your triceps because of that angle increasing. So what we want to do is find a grip and a position. Go ahead and do it properly here, Brandon, where we are as narrow as possible while maintaining the narrow joint angles of the upper arm bone and the forearm, but in a position in which allows us to fully retract the scapula in deep shoulder extension without dumping forward and diving into scapular elevation. Go ahead and shrug up there, Brandon. Yeah, this would be the difference between scapular elevation versus scapular retraction and depression, which is exactly what we want in a close grip bench press. What else do we think about the close grip bench press, Brandon?
One other note worth making, if I was bench pressing with my normal grip, which is way the heck out here, you'll notice my elbow tuck isn't very severe. We're right about here for the most part. And if I started to do a closer grip bench, and I had that same degree of elbow tuck, let's say, I would end up in a very poor position here at the bottom. So we got to somewhat adapt our degree of elbow tuck to the closer grip position. You'll notice that beforehand I had a very, maybe not severe, but I had a much greater degree of elbow tuck when I went with that closer grip position. So we're going to do something closer to this to end up in just better joint centration, better position, so I can handle heavier load and do so more proficiently.
Nice. Now, and as a rule of thumb, guys, if you are normally bench pressing really, really wide, you don't have to go to the extreme of a really, really close grip bench press to make it an effective exercise. Your starting grip position is really going to dictate how effective variation from that position is. For example, if you're someone, as Brandon mentioned, who goes super, super wide, you probably only need to go probably 3 to 4 finger widths inside of that. If you are someone who already benches kind of narrow, a close grip bench might not have as good of carryover for you because it's too similar to the position that you normally train out of. So you might be better off doing something like a Duffin bar bench press because it does increase the range of motion, or something like an incline bench press. Brandon out.